Shalom, Apostle, talking back at you with the truth, giving all praises to Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai Bashem, Makakwadash. And there's another lesson in, scriptural breakdown on hermeneutics. Matter of fact, I'm going to entitle this video, Hermeneutics, Revelation chapter 18, and the Cambridge School. Anyway, before I go into it, I wanted to look up, go into the term hermeneutics. Hermeneutics is a theory. Let me do this. Hermeneutics is the theory and methodology of interpretation, especially the interpretation of biblical texts, wisdom, lecture, and philosophical texts. Hermeneutics is more than interpretive principles or methods used when immediate comprehension fails, and includes the art of understanding and communication. Hermeneutics is mostly used to, as it says, biblical text, but it's also used to interpret, other books, secular books or whatever. Let me do this. People also ask, what is hermeneutics in simple terms? Wait me for a minute. The word hermeneutics means the interpretation of language. The word hermeneutics means the interpretation of language. So, the Christian theological world, takes this word hermeneutics to mean, interpreting scriptures, but it means interpreting more than scriptures. It said the word hermeneutics means the interpretation of language, whether written or spoken. Now, what we do, just came to me, what we do is when we go through the scriptures, we'll pull out words and then we'll click on the words. If it's in the Old Testament, it'll be in Hebrew or Aramaic. And if it's in the New Testament, it's in Greek. So we'll go into the word and we'll go into the root of the Greek word. And we may follow it up with some precepts dealing with that particular word. So it said the word hermeneutics means the interpretation of language, whether written or spoken. Generally, hermeneutics is an activity that interests biblical scholars because they go into words. Okay, this word comes from look, you have the everyday average Christian, they don't go into, they're different. The difference between an everyday average Christian, like Vocab Malone, now he's trying to get, Vocab got to give us, props, because we put him on a higher level of learning that they didn't teach him in that whatever theological cemetery that he went to for however many years. He's watched our videos and criticized us and demonized us, but at the same time, he's learned how to go into words more. That's why I did years ago, this is maybe back in 2016, I did a video on hell, and him and Jesus is the Word did a counter to my video, and he was going into these books. If you read this book by so-and-so and such, well, what I did was I went into the hermeneutics, which is interpretation. The simplest, the simplest way to, or the simplest way to explain hermeneutics is the interpretation of languages. So when we're reading out of the scriptures, you come across the word world, Well, what does it mean by world? So you go into the Greek. It's from the Greek word cosmos, and cosmos simply means a community, for lack of a, like you have the rock and roll world, you have the hip hop world, you have the world of photographers, people that are they're obsessed with going to countrysides and in the woods and taking pictures of birds and so forth. That's a whole different world. You know, you got the boxing world, you got the MMA world. You know, people in the MMA, the coaches and the trainers, the coaches, the fighters, and their wives and their children, they're pretty much, their lives evolve around that whole MMA thing, which means diet, exercise, conditioning coaches, dietitians, that's diet, nutritionists, doctors. You know, the way, I'm not going to go all into it, but the way the UFC is set up is just like the ancient gladiators, because the best doctors were the ones that took care of them gladiators, man. All right. So when you go into that word world, John 3:16, you just can't say it's a whole wide world. If it was a whole wide world, the word in the Greek would be oikomene. The Romans, the Lord spoke about at the end of this world. He was, the word there is not cosmos. You got cosmos, you got oikomene, and you got eon. Eon just means the age. And I believe, well, I read it certain places, various places, that a empire or a great kingdom, the exploration date is usually about 250 years. If it's a great vast kingdom, it will last for about 250 years. Could be more, could be less. This place, 1776, is really before 1776. America was, as soon as Edomites step foot on his land, you know, that's Esau's kingdom. You know, that's the beast, the birth of the beast coming out of that, you know, being loose from the chains. So really, it's more than 200 years. But if you go to 1776, 1876, 1976, what is that? 1776, 1876, 1976, 76, 86, 96, 2006, 2016. So technically, this place would have to go down in exactly in the year, what is that, 2026? Yeah, 2026, 76, 86, 96, 2006, 2016, 2000, yeah, 2026. But the Most High speaks about, you know, borrowed time. He doesn't say that, you know, exactly in the scriptures, but and times being cut short. Like if you go to the ancient Babylon, the prophecy was for them to rule for 70 years. When you go to secular history, they only rule for, I believe 67 years. So a kingdom, but the same thing with people dying. 70, which means 70, and with strength, 80, which means 80 years. There's people, my grandmother died at 92, and she wanted to die because all her peers died. Her sister, she was real close to, when she died, she said, look, I don't want to be here no more. All my peers died. She died at 92. And some people die at 60. Some people died in their 50s, 40s, 20s, get shot up or whatever, get a sickness, cancer. But on average, people's lifespan is about 80. Showing you that the Most High does not deal in exact times. Because if you want to follow the Most High literally, if he says anything wrong, you're going to turn your back on the Lord. Well, guess what? Here's a reason for you to turn your back on the Lord. The Lord said, 70, and with strength 80. So anybody that lives to be 81, Most High was a liar, if you want to go by that. So let me come back to this, and I'm gonna go into my lesson. And I'm gonna focus on Revelation 18, one of my favorite scriptures, favorite chapters, because the book of Revelation itself, but mainly Revelation 18, because it's the end, the closing credits. You know, like certain movies, I believe, Apocalypse Now, the end of the movie, the closing credits was that particular island being on fire. And you had the music playing, and they had the closing credits. So, you know, Revelation chapter 18 is basically the closing credits. You know, who produced it, who directed it, who started it, the music, art direction, you know, cinematography expert, converting this to that, blah, blah, blah. Food preparation, you know, guy with the red suit, you know, says, give his name. That's the closing credits. So Revelation 18, chapter 18 to me is the closing credits of this man's system. So now what I did was I read verse by verse. Like I said, there's no way, because when I was going through this, I said, I'm gonna do a lesson on this. It took me more than about an hour. And I didn't even get to the whole, cover the whole chapter, and I jumped a lot of verses. So this might be a 2-part video. It could be a 3-part video. So anyway, it says, okay, where am I? Okay, the word hermeneutics means the interpretation of language. So when you're reading the scriptures, you have to consider what is the actual word, what is the root, well, what is the actual word there in the Hebrew, Aramaic, or Greek? What Aramaic is basically Hebrew. If you come up like Daniel, they say it's mostly written in Aramaic, but you look up the words, it's going to link you right to the Hebrew. Because who's Aram? Aram was one of the sons of Shem. And the sons of Shem all spoke what we call today Hebrew, Lashon Kodash, holy tongue. So Aramaic is just a name of a people that spoke the Hebrew, but it's there's different dialects in Hebrew. Like there's a classical Hebrew, there's a precept. I found it one time, there's a precept in the scriptures in the New Testament that there's like the scribes and the Pharisees, they spoke a different Hebrew than the average Israelite. Like it was like you have a classical form of Hebrew, and then you have this Hebrew. Like Spanish, you have Puerto Rican Spanish, you have Dominican Spanish. You know, you have then you have what is that? Castilian Spanish, I think it's called. Castilian Spanish, which goes back to Castile in Spain. Like the purest form of Spanish is the people that are from Spain, and they speak a classical, like newscasters. You watch the Spanish news, those newscasters, they speak more of a classic Spanish. Anyway, let me get back into this. It says the word hermeneutics means the interpretation of languages. So if you're breaking down the scriptures, you have to go back. Somebody quote the scripture, you have to say, well, what's the Hebrew word for that? And what's the actual word there in the translation? And the average everyday Christian doesn't understand that. It says whether written or spoken. Generally, hermeneutics is an activity that interests biblical scholars, not the average run-of-the-mill Christian that knows one scripture, John 3:16, and can't even break that down correct. It says activity that interests biblical scholars, one who studies. And the word is sometimes used in philosophy as well. So let me go to Revelation 18. And then I'm going to go back and forth from Revelation 18 in the scriptures. Oh, and another thing I want to say. You go back, I don't know how many years, go to church or whatever. We all been to churches, right? What is the go-to Bible that not all churches, but most churches use? The KJV, right? The King James 1611. Like it's in the Gideon Bible, that's in the hotels, you know, that's really the King James. It's word for word the King James. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. I'll stand corrected. But all of a sudden now you got these Christians, they demonize the KJV. Why? Because of Israel. Well, the Israelites use the KJV, and that's not a real reliable. Did you demonize everything dealing with Israel, including the scriptures that we read at? So technically, us reading out of the KJV, we shouldn't be reading out of that. And then you cause some brothers that even go into other translations, which some of them translations, you know, are so-called written in plain English, but sometimes they go off. That's why you have to go to these root words, the actual Greek or the Hebrew. Anyway, so let's go into it. Okay, Babylon is falling. So I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna just read every single verse, because this would be like a 5-part series. So it says, Revelation 18, verse 1. And after these things, I saw an angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hateful bird. Now, I remember when High Priest Ariel broke this down, he said, and he cried with a mighty and strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils. This is how High Priest Ariel broke it down. He said, when Esau came to this land and took down the Gadites and the Reubenites, and then took, you know, eventually took Canada and Central and South America, that's when it fell. And it's become the habitation of devils, meaning Edomites, in the hold of every foul spirit. What is a foul spirit? Moles, and a cage for every unclean, hateful bird. Moles. That's how he broke it down. He went completely off on that particular verse. Let me go ahead and read it again. When he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, is talking about John seeing the missiles and the angel, the Lord and the angels and Michael, Revelation 12, coming back and using lasers and the missiles, the ICBM missiles, the hypersonic missiles, to destroy this place. So he saw the destruction. He saw what Isaiah saw in Isaiah 34, the mushroom cloud, the heaven being rolled together as a scroll. He saw the destruction of this place. Now, when I go to the what is this? The commentary, right? I'm gonna go to it right now. Let me. Okay, so Revelation, and after these things I saw angel. We don't have to break that down. Pretty much self-explanatory. Let's go to 2, verse 2. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So this is a go-to commentary because it's short. Cambridge Bible for Schools and Colleges. It said, mightily with a strong voice, we should read with a mighty voice. So it says Babylon is falling. And look at what they give you. Revelation 14:8. And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is falling, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Isaiah 21:9. And that's a precept. Isaiah 21 is a precept also we can use when we're going into Revelation 18 and the destruction of Babylon. And now, when we go through these commentaries, they know that this place is talking about America, but they won't say it. They're scared to say it. Isaiah 21 verse 9, and behold, here comes a chariot of men with a couple of horsemen, and he answered and said, Babylon is fallen, and all the graven images of her gods he has broken to the ground. Anything that has to do with this place is going to be destroyed. The habitation of devils, better, and habitation similar vengeance is denounced on the literal Babylon. Now, when they say the literal Babylon, they're talking about ancient Babylon, pagan Babylon. We're talking about 600 BC or BCE, before the Christian era. It says Isaiah 13, which this is not talking about ancient Babylon, 600 BC. It's talking about the new Babylon. But when Isaiah and Jeremiah saw these visions, they thought it was talking the way they thought that ancient Babylon was going to be destroyed by fire. It wasn't destroyed that way. When you go into the history, Darius, and I've said this many times, Darius put out the decree for the king of Babylon to be surgically taken out because he was drunk and he had the king's food, which was dainties. We're going to get into that word, dainties. Food, basically, they were loading up on carbs and liquor. And they were drunk, and his lords too. And that's when they came and they took him out. So they didn't have to tear down walls and shoot arrows and so forth. It says similar vengeance is denounced on the literal Babylon. They don't understand that. Talking about this Babylon. Isaiah 13, 21 and 22. It's just going to give me Isaiah 13 and 21. It says, but wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures. And where your houses were, there's going to be doleful creatures, desert-like creatures. And owls shall dwell there, and sat trees shall dance there. And that goes hand in hand with Revelation 18. What is that? Revelation 18:2. Every foul spirit, and every unclean and hateful bird is talking about scavenger animals, lizards, snakes, whatever. It says, but now if you notice, it says, and on Edom. So they compare Revelation 18:2 to the destruction that's going to take place on Edom. And they're not going to tell you who, we don't know, like vocab says, the Edomites, they all died off. They died off. I don't know where's the receipts for that? Do you know that? Do you know the story of Hadad that escaped or sought to escape from David and Joab? He went down into Egypt, and the Pharaoh of that time set him up with his wife's sister, which was an Egyptian, and they had children. They had at least one son, but they had children. So you're going to have Edomites that look just like Hamites, man. So there's no way in hell, just like we went all around the world and scattered and left our seed all over the place, Esau did the same thing. That's what the tares and the wheat is all about. You're going to have Edomites looking like Jake. You're going to have Jake looking like Edomites and other nations. I see that all the time. You see a Edomite man, a Moabite woman, and the daughter looks Moab, but has like Edomite features to him, look more Americanized. So we don't know who you can look at a person and say, we don't like myself. This guy vocab, well, how do you know you kind of light skinned to heart? I said, well, then I told him this. I said, look, if I'm an Edomite, I'm going into captivity. There's nothing else I can do. So the question is, you should be concerned whether you're an Edomite or not. And we deem you to be an Edomite. Haman, to be exact, and on Edom. So it says Isaiah 34, 13 and 15. And thorns shall come up in her place, nettles and brambles in the fortress, and therefore, and it shall be an habitation of dragons and a court of owls. So this was mentioned in Isaiah 13. This was mentioned in Revelation 18. So it's not talking about Esau coming to the land and taking down the Gadites and the Reubenites. It says it is also quite certain which of the words used in those passages are names of demons or goblins. No, when you go out, you have people that live out in the woods for a while. They want to cut off and get off the grid. They have experiences where they hear things. They hear things moving. Those are actual spirits. Spirits are all over the place, and they can manifest themselves. And which of terrestrial birds and beasts, that's correct. But there is little doubt that Isaiah, like St. John, means to describe both as occupying the desolate city. The desolate city is the new Babylon, Babylon the great whore, the good old US of A. And these scholars know that. So when they do this deep study, you have to come to a conclusion. What does this mean? And then many of them came to the conclusion that this is that place. You should look up Stan Johnson. He lines up the scriptures just the same, pretty much the same way we line up the scriptures. It says probably a prison, not a fortress. It is the same word that is translated cage in the next clause, and prison. What it says, First Peter's and First Saint Peter, Ephesians 3 verse 19. Anyway, like I said, I'm not gonna go through all these. You know what I'm gonna do? Let me try something. Because sometimes they say that the Babylon in Revelation is talking about Rome. Let's see if they say that in here. Okay, Rome. Okay, Rome, Revelation. This is Bengal's Nomen. The G is silent. Revelation 18:4. And not until then the people of the Most High are commanded to go forth. But the people of the Most High are not those whose pastor is the Roman pontiff. As someone has wished to wrest the apocalypse, it is said, my people, not the people of Rome, which as you read down is talking about, they call it the body of believers, which are the Israelites. So now let's go to the next verse 3. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. You know, they became westernized, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. You know, years ago, when America was great commercially, as a great merchant city, it was because you had all these manufacturers. It started mainly with the South. What made America great was the South and the slave trade. But the slaves are up in the North too. And they the Industrial Revolution of the turn of the century, from 1899, 1900, 1901, 1920s. That's when America became truly great. And, you know, it had all these manufacturers. That's why people became rich, because they were selling their wares all over the planet. So now the so-called Chinese took a page from that book, and they're doing what America did so many years ago. So these people became rich. And there was a movie called Ragtime, came out years ago. And one of the characters was a so-called Jew. He used to draw pictures on paper, and he would move the paper and it looked like it would move, and he would sell it. And then he turned it over, and he became a millionaire back there. A millionaire back there is like a billionaire today. And he was actually doing movies. So he went from selling these papers to, the group of, you have like 100 sheets of paper and you draw pictures. And when you do the thing with your finger, it looks like the pictures are actually moving. That's the whole concept of cartoons. So in that movie, he's a fictional character. He became rich because he turned his money over. And how did Esau do that over here? By producing things to sell to other people in this country and around the world. So that's what China did. China's number one in that. But there's other countries that produce things. We're just a service-based nation, meaning you have lawyers, doctors, restaurants, musicians. We don't make anything, or America doesn't make anything like it used to. The old steel companies in Pennsylvania and so forth. Anyway, it says the only thing you have left is really the Bible Belt, the farms out there, and they're taking that over. It says, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, became westernized, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich, became rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So let me go to the Cambridge. Bear with me for a minute. Now I came across the word delirium. Her being drunk, one of the interpreters use the word delirium. And when you look up the word delirium, is when you drink too much and you're staggering all over the place. Let me see if it's here. Okay, it said Cambridge Bible for schools and colleges should, and I use this one because it's short, should perhaps be omitted. It may have come in from the parallel passage, Revelation 14:8. And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Revelation 17:2. Let's see what that says. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Went to bed with her. Every member nation of the UN they're all sellouts, and all of them are. All the nations around the world, the ones they go back and forth to war with, Arab nations, and U.S., they all get together once a year, and there's no war. They don't fight against each other. There should be all kind of assassinations happening in the UN, right? No, because New York, where the UN was set up, is neutral territory for them. Hands off. So they're showing you they all work together. They said merchants are alluded to as frequenting the literal Babylon in Isaiah 47, verse 15. Now that's talking about America. Isaiah 47, verse 15. Thus shall they be to you with whom you have labored, even your merchants. Number one on the list is China. From your youth, they shall wander, everyone to his quarter, none shall save you. You know what? The mindset of these nations now is like, look, forget about this goddamn place. These people ain't got no money. They ain't got no money. It says, but the prominence given to them suggests the analogy not of Babylon, but of Tyre, because we say that Tyre spiritually is also America. See on Revelation 17:1. And there came one of the seven angels, which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying to me, come here, I will show you the judgment of the great whore that sitteth on many waters. The many waters represent people and nations and tongues and kings, right? Rome was in St. John's day a wealthy, now they're comparing Babylon, Revelation 18, Babylon to ancient Rome. I ain't talking about ancient Rome. Rome was in St. John's day a wealthy and luxurious city, yes. And Rome is a wealthy and luxurious city today, which is right over here. This is the new Rome. Deadly wound being healed, Revelation 13. Not a commercial city primarily. Well, this place is a wealthy place and a commercial city, a place of merchandise. Mercantile goes back to the word merchandise. It said primarily in the same sense as ancient Tyre, which that's America as well, and modern London. England was one of the heads of the beast, and a member of the EU. Used to be a member, I'm saying no longer a member of the EU, but still a member of NATO. But a city with an immense commerce. Well, that was America at one time. The Americans became rich because of the products that they produced for other Americans and around the world. So now that's why you go back to the 60s, the 50s. China, man, people are looking down on Chinese people, man. They ain't looking down on them now. Everything that you get is not made in the US anymore. There's very few places that are made in the US. Most things are made in China. Look at your labels. Oh, the Make America Great Again. You know, those hats were made in China. This guy, Trump, was pushing that America, pro-American, and he was selling, he would sell ties, he sell all kinds of things. And he was on the David Letterman show, and David Letterman had took a tie out. I said, this is a Trump tie. And he looked to the back and said, why is it made in China? This is long before he became president. So it's all bullshit, man. The super rich are only about themselves. In the same sense as ancient Tyre and modern London, but because at one time London was the greatest place to be. Remember the what do you call it? The world reserve currency was what came out of London, England, before it came out of America after World War II. What was that? The Bretton Woods Conference. It said, but a city with an immense commerce. That was America. Now it's China. The commerce really belonged to the city, though the port of Ostia was considerably further from the capital than the docks. Just like we have a capital, DC, and the docks on the West Coast and on the East Coast. Your items, your merchandise come from the West Coast. Why? Because when you go to California, what's on the other side of the Pacific? China. China ain't gonna go all around the world to come to the East Coast. They mostly come to the West Coast. Everything that you get, or mostly everything that you get, come from the West Coast and is trucked to the East Coast, the middle, middle America, and so forth. It says from the capital, then the docks are from Westminster. Yeah, because at one time, like I said, Great Britain out of London. London is the financial capital of the world. Now it's kind of America, Wall Street, and so forth. What Rome was, then it may and probably will be again. And there is thus no need to look elsewhere than at Rome, but show you that they don't know. You can say Rome, but you got to say the new Rome, the reviving, the rebirth of Rome, for the literal fulfillment of St. John's description. Well, the literal fulfillment is going to happen over here, the new Rome, in the new Rome, though some have thought it inappropriate to the geographical position of the city, because the geographical location of the new Rome or Babylon is right over here. I was trying to look at the word delirium. It could be in another verse. Let's go to, I'm get ready to go out there and try to make some shekels. So let's go to the 4th verse. Let me read it and I'll speak on it. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, which are Israelites, which are the elect of Israel, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues." Let me read that again. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues." Her plagues are the destruction. Psalms 91. Now, High Priest Ariah and the rest of the 7 used to teach. This is before they taught about the so-called UFOs coming down and beaming us up. They said, you got to get your passports because we got to go to South America before the Most High destroys this place. But this, so that means before the place is destroyed, we got to be out of here. We got to be, that didn't make no sense at all. This is talking about an angel actually coming down. When the Lord comes back, the angels come back. Michael, leader of the other angels, there's going to be a shout made. That's in Revelation 11. And they're going to be, that's what it means. The angel's going to say, come out of her, meaning come up hither. So let's see what the commentary says. I may just stop it on this and come back. Okay, Cambridge, Bible for Schools and Colleges. Come out of her, Isaiah 48:2. Isaiah 52:11. Depart you, go out, go you out from there, touch no unclean thing, go you out of the middle of her, be you clean that bear the vessels of Yahweh. Jeremiah 15:8. Remove out of the middle of Babylon and go forth out of the land of the Chaldeans, and be as the he goats before the flock. Now that goes into a whole going into the wilderness and so forth. Because we got to take, after we delivered, we're going to come back with these superhuman bodies, extraterrestrial and slash angelic bodies, and we're going to take over the whole world. And they're going to fight us in the beginning. Then they're going to realize the fight that they're fighting against us is futile, because we're going to have spiritual power. And we're going to have fun doing that, man. What's that series? The word Dion. I watched maybe one episode. Something Dion. Somebody put it in there. I don't get a chance to watch it, but it's about a little young. He might be about 7, 8 years old. A Jake kid, and he has spiritual power. And it goes into his father, which was played by this guy, Michael B. Jordan. He had that power. So they basically, Esau is telling you who the chosen people of the Most High are and who has the spiritual power. It says, flee out of the middle of Babylon, which we know what Babylon is talking about. I'm not talking about ancient Babylon, that's for sure. And deliver every man his soul, be not cut off in her iniquity. Because the ones of our people, Amos 9, the ones of our people that stay, will say the evil shall not overtake them or prevent us, they're going to stay right over here and die, because they're going to have the charagma in them. And I'm going to say this again. Anybody that's teaching about the charagma being something other than what we say it is, you guys took the bag, because the evidence is overwhelming. The receipts are yea high. For this is the name of Yahweh's vengeance. He will render to her, Babylon, a recompense, payback. We say payback is a bitch, and it is. Jeremiah 51:9. And I love Jeremiah 50, chapter 50, chapter 49, chapter 51. We would have healed Babylon. Now you can see there ain't no way that if you notice, Biden is not saying we got to build back better. Build back. You ain't building nothing back. Nothing gonna be built back, man. It ain't gonna be built no more. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her and let us go, everyone, into his own country. That's these other nations. That's also in Isaiah 13. For her judgment reaches to heaven and is lifted up even to the skies. And that goes into their space program. The SpaceX, and you got a black woman, the first black woman that's gonna go to the ICC, International Space. She's gonna die up there too. She's part of the system. Jeremiah 51 and 45. And then I'm gonna close it and I'll come back. It says, my people, go you out of the midst of her, which is Babylon, and deliver you every man his soul from the fierce anger of Yahweh. So it says, all referring to the flight of Israel from the literal Babylon. No, it's talking about not the ancient little Babylon. It's talking about the new Babylon, the great city, the great Hur. This passage is nearest to the last of those cited. But in the second, there is also the suggestion that the Lord's people, which are Israelites, starting with the elect, only elect, because the only ones that's going to be delivered are the elect, must depart to secure their purity or to secure their lives, as well as that they will depart to secure their liberty. They are, however, presumably dwellers at Babylon, which is New Babylon, as captives. Yep, and we are captives through what? Through paperwork, not as citizens. It can hardly be meant that any of them really belong to Babylon, right? We don't belong to, we search for a city, how does that phrase go? We seek for a city to come. I'm botching a little bit. Somebody can put it in the description. Or are loath to quit her, like Lot in Sodom, like Lot in Sodom. Read Genesis 19, the last few verses. Abraham looked and saw a smoke go up into the heavens. That's what John saw. Till the very eve of her fall. Right, and that's when we're going to be delivered. When the missiles are in, they go, well, the ICBMs, they're going to go out of the atmosphere and come back in the atmosphere. The hypersonic missiles are going to be low cruising missiles. They're going to go under the so-called firmament. So we're going to be delivered. It says the righteous shall scarcely make it. Anyway, I said I was going to make parts. So we covered chapter 4. Verse 4. And I'll come back. And with that, I'm going to say shalom.